All right, welcome back to Community Focus. And go look at your calendar right now. While you're looking at it, think what goes on in the month of March. Obviously, some people are out there doing a few things in the yard trying to get prepared for spring. But hey, March means one thing in the state of Kentucky, and that's March Madness. And that's whether it's high school basketball or college basketball, it's March Madness. And there's nobody in this three-county area that personifies basketball anymore than my guest here with me today, former coach Minor Harmons, a Hall of Fame basketball coach, and like I said, been my partner on radio for several years. And Coach, I know this is a time of year that you get a little bit excited.
Well, I do. I've told you before on some of our radio broadcasts that I really don't miss basketball that much. I certainly enjoy during the radio games with you, but when it gets into February and March, I kind of get excited again. That blood gets to pumping, and as I closed out the show last night in the regional finals in the Bardstown-Taylor game, I said, this time of year my blood boils in reference to missing basketball and coaching and being part of the tournament. So this is exciting time. I really enjoy this time of year.
We had an interesting high school season this year. We followed 4 schools, boys and girls, and none of them actually, we had I guess what you call an outstanding year. Bardstown having the best year, obviously, coming runner-up, fifth region, but each one of them, but they all had a decent year. I mean, everybody, as far as we know, everybody, we didn't see too much discrepancy this year from high school basketball, just not one of the better years.
Well, I think overall, certainly you have to congratulate the Bardstown Tigers and Coach Boo Brewer. I think it's his 5th year there at Bardstown, and in 5 years, I think that was the 4th time he's had a team in the regional championship game, and I think in 2011 and then in 2014 they won it, 2012, and then of course, unfortunately last night they lost in the regional championship game, and I think the other year in 2013 they got the first round before they got beat, but they had an excellent year. They run up into a very good basketball team last night, and Coach Brewer played an exceptionally tough schedule, and I think in December probably some of the Bardstown faithful probably were a little concerned because he had several losses there in December. But from January on, they showed a great deal of improvement, and the rim had a lid on it last night. Shots wouldn't go down, and quite frankly, a better Taylor County team beat the Tigers last night. But I think Coach Brewer continues to show that he's doing a good job over there, and he's got the program headed in the right direction.
And we can talk about other teams that and I know you stay on top of these a little better than I do, and I sort of rely on you for that. But Thomas Nelson went through a very big rebuilding year this year, but I look forward to having they got a new coach, and I think he's going to do a good job, and hopefully next year will look a little better.
Well, I think you have to give those kids and that coaching staff a lot of credit. It's not easy when you go and play the schedule they played, which is a very tough schedule. And by the way, Coach Johnson didn't have anything to do with that schedule. He inherited it. And they continued to play hard and play as a team. And they were somewhat limited, perhaps, as far as experience and certain skills of the game. They certainly need to improve, but they continue to play hard. And I thought in the district tournament, even when Bardstown was obviously the better team, I thought they played hard, never gave up. I thought they responded well to him. And I've said this all year long, they're in their 3rd year at Thomas Nelson. And unfortunately for them, they were at square one. They were more or less starting to build their program this year. And, circumstances surrounding the first 2 years, they had some success there, but that success up and left them.
Just to put it mildly.
Put it mildly. And so I think Coach Johnson did an excellent job out there, and I think you'll see improvement as years go on if he continues to coach out there. And as far as Bethlehem, my good friend and former assistant coach, Artie Braden, I thought had an excellent year. I think they ended up 17-12, and Coach Braden has been very successful everywhere he's been. It's his 2nd tour of duty at Bethlehem, and once again, he's very successful. I think he's got some younger kids who played this year that will bode well for next year. And as I said, he's a veteran coach and a good friend, and I think he's one of the top coaches in this area, and I think he proved it once again this year with the Eagles, because I thought they had a real good year and competed hard in every game they were in. When you look at Nelson County, and ironically coached by Bev Hard, who at one time was a coach over there at Bethlehem, it seemed like we flip-flop around here as far as coaches going here or there, but I thought Coach Hart had a team that competed hard, and I think they ended up with 11 wins and 17 losses, and they too played a competitive schedule. And all the time, I know people sometimes talk about us talking on the radio, those free throws are important. Mm-hmm. Well, the district tournament in their game against Bethlehem, the free throw line was the difference. Mm-hmm. And if they'd have hit their free throws, well, they would have been playing in the district championship instead of Bethlehem. I think they were only 8 for 22, 9 for 22, something like that, while Bethlehem was 17 for 23. So
they only got a couple seniors too, don't they?
And they only lose a couple of seniors. I think he's got 4 starters coming back. Yeah. So I think Coach Hart, probably looking down the road, could have a competitive team in the district and region next year. So on the boys' side, I think that you saw a lot of improvement, and certainly when in Bardstown's case, I hope they're not too disappointed because they had a good year.
Oh, absolutely.
But Taylor, I thought, was the better team last year.
Yeah, absolutely. And then on the girls' side, obviously the Nelson County Lady Cards, they were runner-up in their region.
They were, and just to put it bluntly, everybody was playing for second place in the 5th region because Elizabethtown Lady Panthers have an exceptional team this year. I think they're undefeated in the state of Kentucky. I think they're 26-0 and 31-2 overall. Their 2 losses were from out-of-state competition, and a lot of expectations over there. They were state champ runner-up last year. They're preseason number 1, and they're still the number 1 team, and they're picked to win the state tournament this week. And the girls' state tournament goes on as we're speaking right now, and I look for them, barring the bus breaking down, getting them to getting them to the arena. I look for them to win the state championship. But Coach Kelly Wood, I thought, did an excellent job this year. Early in December, he lost some games convincingly. He plays a tough schedule. He had some players that were hurt, some from other sports that they got hurt in. And then by the middle of January, I thought his team rounded into shape, and they went on a pretty good winning streak there towards the end of the season and competed rather well. Bardstown Lady Tigers snuck in there and got them in the regular season, stopped that tremendous win streak in the district. Mm-hmm. I think it was around 48 or 49 consecutive wins over district competition in the last 4, 5, 6 years, and they beat them in the regular season. But Lady Cards prevailed in the district final, and they ended up, I think, 24-6, and another good job by Coach Wood and his staff. And he's got some young ladies coming back that I feel like that he feels like they'd be real competitive next year. Probably the surprise team in the district had to be the Bardstown Lady Tigers. And, of course, they had Alexis Brewer, who's Coach Brewer's daughter and one of the top players in this region, also in the state. And they ended up, I think, 21-9 and made a good run this year and pulled that big win off against the Lady Cards on their floor late in the year. And then things didn't work out for them in the district, but they had a very successful season, and a lot was built around her, but they had some other kids that played well too, and a very nice job on their part. Thomas Nelson Lady Generals, under new coach Joshua Whitehouse, ended up, I think, 10-17, and they had some moments where they played real well and some moments where they didn't, but I know he's got some younger kids coming back that he's hoping to build on this season. And I said something to him late in the year about I thought the kids had played hard for him, and he said yes, he was pleased with the effort they gave, and he was hoping that what success they had late in the year would bode well for their kids coming back next year and their summer work, in which they go to different camps and team camps and hopefully try to improve on their skill level, and they're getting better for the next season. Of course, the Banshees with Chris Taylor over there. It's not that they don't play hard, but I think there's a lid on the rim every time they play because they seem to struggle offensively, and they did that continually this year. Mm-hmm. And but as I said, they play hard. They seem to really work hard on the defensive end, but people say defense wins championships and offense puts people in the seats, but you have to have a combination of both. And I don't care how tough your defense is, if you can't put some points up on the board at the right time, you're going to struggle. and Bethlehem Banshee struggle because of their shooting woes.
And and I know you've said this before on the radio. You talk about people that can coach talent, and that's not necessarily talent, but you also have to have size and height, bulk. You have to have something else that goes along with it. I mean, you can be super talented, but I use Keanu Young as an example. I mean, he's one of the smaller players on the floor, one of the most talented players on the floor, but you can't win with 5 Keanu Youngs on the floor. At least I don't think you can.
I've really enjoyed watching him play. He's an excellent athlete. He's a tremendous competitor, both in football and basketball. But watching him from the basketball court, he just plays hard. He kind of plays with a passion, and he's had some excellent games for the Tigers over the last few years. And I think his competitive spirit kind of rubs off on his teammates. But you couldn't go wrong if you had 5 Keanu Youngs out there. But by the same token, you probably need to find some height too. And but he's been an interesting player to watch, and he's been a pleasure to watch because he works so hard.
Absolutely. Well, absolutely. As we mentioned, Mark Madsen, as we filmed this, as he mentioned, we are going into girls basketball tournament right now, state tournament, the boys tournament being next week, and also this week coming up is I know something near and dear to many of our hearts. The SEC tournament's coming up this week, and I know you're a diehard UK fan, but we'll also talk UK. U of L, Western having a good year this year. I believe it's Murray having a good year. Yeah. So a lot of Kentucky teams are looking pretty good this time of year.
Oh, Murray's had a tremendous year, and unfortunately for Murray, I watched the Belmont-Murray State game the other night in the finals of the OVC, and the OVC only allows the winner of the tournament to represent them in NCAA. Very unfortunate for Murray State this year. I think they were on a 25-game winning streak, ended up 27-4, and lost on a three-pointer that was kind of an off-balance shot, but nothing but the bottom of the net. And I watched that ball game, and 2 teams that got up and down the floor that played real well and moved the basketball and shot it well. A great game to watch. I think the OVC has some excellent players. Probably the difference between OVC and some of the major conferences is the major conferences have more size, more bulk inside. The OVC seems to be like 6'5", 6'6" type kids, and 6'3", and but a very interesting matchup. And unfortunately, Murray State's not going to be in the NCAA tournament, and I think deservedly so. Western's had an excellent year, and Coach Harper down there has done a good job. And Eastern, I'm alumnus of Eastern. I know they had a big win back early in December, beating Miami, Florida, at Miami, Florida, and they played a pretty competitive schedule and had a very successful season. And I think Belmont beat Eastern by 1 point to get to the finals of the OVC. And as good a year as Murray State had, Moorhead came on strong. And in the semifinals of the OVC tournament, Moorhead led Murray State several minutes. And late in the game, Murray State got ahead and won by, I think, 3 points. So I've already mentioned Moorhead and Eastern and Western. Murray, those type of schools have been very competitive. Bellarmine up the road here.
Yeah, Bellarmine has had a good year.
They're playing real well, and but I guess when you get to the Big Two, Louisville's had their ups and downs. But once again, Coach Pitino's seem like they're playing well here at the end of the year.
Knocked off Virginia a few days ago.
Knocked off Virginia in a game that I had to laugh. Coach Pitino explaining the young man that took the shot, and I'm not going to try to pronounce his name because I'll butcher it. But the Virginia went and double teamed the Rozier, and he had to give it up to this young man from the foul line, and he knocked down the jumper. And when they asked Coach Pitino if he drew the play up, he said, Coach Pitino said, well, no, he was our 64th option, which meant they were hoping anybody on the floor.
Why does he even have the ball?
Anybody on the floor but him shoot it. And but then he quickly mentioned the fact that he'd worked hard on his jump shot and how much he'd worked on some of the private sessions they have, and responded well by knocking that shot down. But of course, Louisville's in the ACC tournament. I think tomorrow, play the winner of North Carolina, Boston College. If they could make a run in that ACC tournament, they probably get a halfway decent seed. I have a feeling somehow it always seems like Louisville, Kentucky ends up in the same region. It's kind of ironic that it happens every year. Sometimes I think the NCAA maybe kind of has it in for Kentucky and Louisville. And then, of course, being a Cat fan, they're undefeated. and that's great, and I'm excited for them and happy. And but I am kind of wondering, is the SEC better than people give it credit for, or is Kentucky not quite as good as they're giving credit for? Because in the SEC, Kentucky's had about 4 or 5 games now,
a couple overtimes
where they won, and good teams find a way to win, and Kentucky is a good team. But if the SEC is so down, why have 4 or 5 teams took Kentucky to the limit?
I don't know. Kentucky's taking down North Carolina, UCLA, Kansas, I probably not Louisville, and probably a couple others I've left out here that's really good basketball teams.
That's true, and but now they've got I think the way it's set up, they're looking at some of the teams that possibly gave them some trouble. They could very well play a Texas A&M and LSU and Ole Miss, teams that have given them trouble, possibly Georgia. And as I said, if the SEC's down, that means Kentucky's overrated because they've had 4 or 5 close calls. I have a tendency to believe the SEC is a little better conference than people want to give it credit for. I think sometimes they get caught up in the football hype, and they are exceptionally strong in football, but I think they have some pretty good basketball teams in the SEC too. It just so happens Kentucky is number 1 and gets a lot of the publicity and a lot of the hype.
And they get everybody's A game.
Yeah.
They get everybody's going to play their best game of the year, and they're going to sell out a crowd. Sometimes the only sellout they have all year is when the Kentucky comes down.
That's true, and I know it's interesting to me. It seems like ESPN has just kind of checked those TV ratings and jumped on Kentucky's back and say, keep on winning, boys, because the ratings keep going up every time y'all
keep getting Dick Vitale.
keep on winning, because every time y'all play, the ratings go up. So, but I tell you, if I'll be glad to come back next week, because we'll have the brackets next week, and we can sit here and show how much we know or how much we don't know about basketball. And it'll be interesting to see the matchups and the pairings and who ends up in what region. And there's a lot of talk right now about some of the teams that's going to end up in Kentucky's region, and they're saying it's because of the proximity of where their college is to the regional site. And so it's kind of interesting to me to see how they'll end up pairing them and end up what area they'll be in. But I assure you, I have a feeling that Kentucky will end up with some teams that will be very competitive, and it won't surprise me if Louisville, Kentucky don't end up in the same region again.
Well, that's what we're going to do next week. We're going to bring our brackets in here next week on part 2 of this. I'll bring our basketball guru back, and we'll talk about it. But you think about it last year. Both of us said brackets, and both of us did okay. But the one that come out the best, I think, was your grandson, because he's the one that had Kentucky going all the way.
Yeah, he did, and he did a great job, and he lets me know that too. But it'll be interesting to see how it plays out, and looking forward to being here next week, and it'll be interesting to see how you and I compare notes and which teams you pick versus what I pick.
Exactly, and as you and I have talked several times, it's not always who the best team is, it's who the best matchup is, it's the best who's circumstances going on that particular time. So there's a lot of things goes on in the game of basketball rather than just 5 talented people over here and 5 less talented people over here. It's a lot more to that, and you know that as well as I do.
That's true, and as I said, my grandson actually did a better job picking the teams than I did last year. So, I appreciate the fact you think I'm an expert, but if you looked at my bracket last year, you could tell that, man, he don't know much about who's the best team. So, but I look forward to each year picking out the teams that I think will win. And sometimes when it comes to Kentucky, I pick with my heart instead of my head. But I do think the Cats have got an excellent chance to go a long way this time. And forget about the undefeated season. And when you get into tournament play, it's a game at a time.
That's right. We need an undefeated season now. If you're going to lose one, lose it in the SEC tournament. That's it.
Survive and advance. Survive and advance. And but it's an exciting time of the year.
All right, we're going to have part 2 of this show next week, as we have the brackets coming out in a few days. And when they come out, we'll fill out our bracket, and you just follow along on yours, because everybody fills out a bracket. We know you've got one. So we'll all just compare our brackets a little bit, talk about them next week, and hopefully, as I said, this is March Madness, a basketball capital of the world right here in Kentucky, and I don't think anybody can challenge us on that. So, Coach, appreciate you coming in here now, and I appreciate you coming back again next week. We're going to do this all over.
Well, I'll tell you what, I like this time of the year. Enjoy batting back and forth basketball philosophy and which team's the best. And Kenny, you do a great job, and I appreciate you having me on the show.
All right, well, we'll be back. More community focus here on Central Kentucky TV. Stick around, a lot more to come. Come back when you can.